In conversation with Winnifred Tataw, Winnifred, or as most known are by Winnie, is an artist, entrepreneur, and Amazon bestselling author of her debut series, The Gods Scion. Winnie has had a lifelong love of literature and art. As a writer, she wants to create a beautiful fantasy world with compelling and intriguing characters. Winnie loves to spread positivity and joy to those around her and look at the world through a glittering pink lens. And on today's episode of our interview, it's my utmost pleasure and joy to have on the show today, Winnifred Tata. Welcome on the show, Winnie.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited as well to have you on the show today. I'm so excited.
Same here.
Yeah. So, Winnie, could you tell us about your book, Child of Tempus, which is the first book in a series of The Gods Scion? How did this book come about? What inspired you to write Child of Tempus?
Yes, so my first book, baby, Child of Tempest, started uh, um, almost 7, 8 years ago.
Mm.
I've always loved fantasy novels, and I've always
Oh,
been a big nerd. So I've always read comic books, fantasy literature,
oh,
etc. And I've always been a storyteller because my family has always had a long line of generational storytellers. So I've always grew
oh,
up with
interesting.
people telling stories. So about like I said, 8 years ago, I had this idea in my head and I just kept thinking about it and telling my parents about it.
Mm,
And they just suggested, why don't you write this? Like, why? Like, it's stuck in your mind. You need to put it on paper. So I said,
yeah.
okay. So I started writing and I continued writing until I had a complete manuscript.
Wow.
And that is what turned into Child of Tempest.
Wow. That's quite amazing to know, really. I love your start with writing and your start with literature. Sounds like so much fun, even to know that you come from a generation of writers. That's an amazing thing, really. Quite amazing to know. Yeah, so thank you for sharing.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say I do again take it, to heart because again, I do come from a family that loves to tell stories.
Mm,
So I should have known that of course I'd be the one to also tell my own stories and write them too. So
wow.
it's,
That's an amazing thing. Looks like a talent passed from one generation to another. Interesting enough.
yes.
Interesting enough, yeah. Then we have Descendants of Time and Death, which is the follow-up series to Child of Temples for the first one. Now, for readers who
Yes.
haven't read it yet, and of course, without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what we'd expect picking up Descendants of Time and Death? And that's an amazing title, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one of my favorite titles as well.
Oh,
And I not to give a lot away, but every book in the series does have some type of aspect or theme surrounding
oh,
family.
wow.
And that's you can also see it in the titles: child, descendant, sisterhood.
Hmm.
So excuse me, Descendants of Time and Death really focus on ancestry and past lives of family members and
Oh,
how their actions impact the present world and the younger generation and how they're
hmm.
looked upon, as well as a lot of mending bonds, especially around brotherhood and sibling relationships.
Hmm.
All with the backdrop of course, time travel,
Wow.
um, battling an impending civil war. So,
Wow.
not to give too much away, but yeah. So that's the core about Descendants of Time and Death is focusing on those different relationship dynamics and how they just play out from starting in Child of Tempest onto that next book.
Wow. That's quite amazing. I particularly love the themes that this particular series expands on. From the way you're mentioning it,
Yes.
sounds like an amazing, read. So it's quite amazing to know all of these things. Yeah. I love the sound of it. And at this point, I love you to show the book to the camera. Yeah, if you have copy of it there with you,
Oh
just show the
yeah.
camera so you can see what it looks like. Yeah, there's a first series, Child of Tempus.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Quite amazing. Yeah. So now, really, as authors, we all have different ways of reacting to feedbacks and criticism of our works. And I'm curious to know your opinion about criticism. How do you handle criticism as a writer, especially the negative ones?
For me, what I first start off with is thinking, is it coming from a place of helpfulness
Mhm.
um or a place
Jealousy.
against just negativity? If you
Yeah,
say write a review and you say, "Oh, I read Child of Tempest, I don't like the book." Well, I mean, I can't really, I can't get anything from that. I can't gauge, okay, why didn't you like the book? Why didn't
yeah,
you like, and again, not everyone's going to like everything in every novel they read, and that's completely
absolutely.
fine. Everyone has their own taste and style.
Yeah.
But if you're writing it to really try to either give points to the author or, again, just explaining why you don't like the book, that helps me because then
Mm,
I can start seeing, okay, is there a pattern I see with other reviewers giving the same like star review? Like, okay, is it based off the pacing? Is it based off what characters you're talking about? Is it based off the plot? And from there, I can start to gauge, okay, this is what the audience may not like, and then this is
mm,
what the audience may want me to improve on, and then I can
mm,
see now, okay, what can I do to change that? What can I do to improve or fix that? And again, also knowing where, there are creative differences. Maybe it's like, oh, I don't like this character, and I'm like, well, this character is important to the story, so I can't really
mm,
just say get rid of them. But again, I do take criticism and I do like to implement it where it can be educational or it can be a place of improvement for my own writing.
mm,
But I also do know that there's not every place that criticism is put is something I need to take to heart or I need to
absolutely.
implement into my writing because
Yeah.
again, you can't please everyone and you can't write the perfect book for everybody.
Yeah. Wow. I particularly love your, ideas and your take on criticism. And the fact that you mentioned that you should know the place where it's coming from. Is it a place of, constructive criticism or it's a place of negativity? That's very important to know where exactly it's coming from. And yeah, I love your answer to this. It's quite informative and very educative. So thank you for sharing. Very lovely.
Yes.
Yeah. Now Winnifred, there's this question that I like asking authors that come on my show. I've always been fascinated about how authors, especially novelists like yourself, craft a huge long sentences and brings works together in a dynamic manner and in a way that it eventually makes a great novel. This always leave me thinking about how exactly they got their ideas and inspiration. Now, as far as writing is concerned, I would also love to ask you, how do you get your inspiration and ideas? Where did they come from?
So for me, a lot of it comes back again to heritage and culture. Again,
Interesting.
I'm Cameroonian, I'm American,
Mm,
so I
beautiful.
pull a lot of, thank you, a lot of
Love that.
inspiration from, yeah,
Yeah, very amazing.
I,
Sorry,
thank
audience.
you. You're,
Permit us to laugh,
we're
please.
neighbors. It's okay.
Amazing, really. Yeah.
Yeah. But I pull a lot of inspiration from that, my culture, and also just my love of fantasy. So I
Mm,
like to read other books within the genre I'm writing to get a better scope of how to create world building or characters or
mm,
even ideas or villains in the stories. At least for the Gods Scion, it was originally just supposed to be a standalone, but I finished Child of Tempest and it was like, no, there's more of the story that needs to be told. And I'm a really big planner. So I have
wow.
different PowerPoints about um where the characters are from, what they look like, the backstory of the different countries and the
Mm.
monarchs and all of that, because that helps me better continue the story and also make sure that I'm staying consistent within the series.
Absolutely.
And from there, I just again continued and finally got to a stop. I have now, it's going to be
Wow.
6 books in total.
Wow.
We're publishing book 5 this year, so I'm excited about
Wow.
that.
Wow.
And yeah, thank you.
Well, that's a lot of work you're doing, really. That's quite a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing to sit down and put all these words together. It's really amazing, really. Yeah, I need to commend you for a good job done. Yeah, so
Thank
yeah,
you.
that's my commendation. Yeah, now, so Winnie, I'm also curious to know if you experienced any challenges in the process of writing your book. If there is any, could you share with us what challenge it is and how you ultimately overcame it?
Yes, I would say biggest challenge is writer's block. I know some people don't believe in it, but as someone who is a creative and who also creates visual artwork,
Yeah,
it's a real thing. And
absolutely.
sometimes you just don't know where to continue or finish or even
Yeah.
start. And I remember that happened with me for the third book in the series, The Lone Star Child. I was stuck in the middle. I didn't know how I was going to end the book,
Mm.
and then connected back to the next book in the series. So I usually, when it's not coming to me, I step back,
Mm.
and I do other things. So for about 4 months, I didn't write anything. I
Oh.
read other books. I connected with other authors.
Mm.
And then I also just did things that weren't related to writing, just to help spare um, some ideas and also to just relax my mind. So when that 4 months approach, like I had the writer itch again, like, okay, I can start writing. I got
Oh.
something I can at least continue. So
Yeah.
for me, it would be again just knowing when I do a rise of picture, what it comes to writing. Because again, writing a series and writing a lot of world building, sometimes you focus so much on the smaller details.
Mm.
Then when it's time to write the full story, you're like, okay, where do I go from here? So always stepping back,
Well.
um, reading other books within your genre also helps a lot because that helps spur ideas when you're reading and when you're finished of, okay, this is what I want to do. This isn't what I want to do.
Mm.
And then when you regroup and refocus, you have a
Yeah.
clearer image of what you want to continue with. Hopefully, you have a
Wow.
clearer image.
Wow. Wow. That's quite amazing to know, really. I so much love your answers to these questions. Yeah, they're quite intriguing to me. Now, I'd love to ask you, Winnie, apart from Child of Tempus, do you have any other works you've authored or maybe currently working on?
Yes. So my other book is an ebook called The Authorpreneur Yellow Pages, and
Yeah, I
it
think
is
I
a
saw that.
author.
Yeah.
Yes, it's an author help book. So it's supposed to help you from writing to publishing your novel, how to do that, and it has a glossary of different book service providers and how they
Mm.
can help you in that journey. After Child of Tempest or the Gods Scion series is completed, I do have at least 4 other books in the works that will be
Wow.
published whenever they are published.
Wow.
But yes, as you write, I don't think that you will meet any writer who ever runs out of ideas
Yeah.
for new stories. So I definitely
Absolutely.
have a lot of things in the works.
Absolutely. It keep kicking in one's head. You keep having quite a lot of things to write about. Be like, oh, please give me some space. This another idea is forming in this part of the brain. Another idea is coming up in the other part of the brain,
Yep.
and it just keep kicking on your
Yep.
head. Write me, write me, write me, write me.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I
So,
usually do, I take a notebook, I write the concept down, or I put it
yeah,
in an email and I send it to myself.
yeah.
And so I'm
That's
like, okay, it's
interesting.
somewhere. And then I
Yeah.
can go and bother it later. Or it
Yeah,
can
I
bother
love
me
that.
later.
I love your method. I love that. I've heard so many people say, yeah, they used to send message to themselves, or they just jot it down. Sometimes they do recording and save
Yep.
it and listen to it afterward. those amazing way
Yes.
writers get along with their works and everything. Yeah,
Yes.
it's an amazing profession, really, with so many funny tactics with writing. Yeah. Now,
Yes.
Winnifred, I would love you to read a section of your book, but that will be much later. Before we move into that,
Okay.
could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? Are there any challenges you've encountered ever since you got published?
Yes. So I am a self-published author,
Mm.
and when I first started publishing, I published Child of Tempest in 2019. So it just turned 5. Last Thursday was its 5th anniversary of being published. So
Mm.
it was at the beginning, I had no clue what I was doing. I literally published the book and was like, well, I'm going to be a best-selling author. Everyone's going to buy my book and
Wow.
I'm going to be great. And
Yeah.
I woke up the next morning and that did not happen. And I was like, what? I thought I just have to publish and then I'm famous and everything. I thought that's how it works. And no, you, like
You're
everything else,
surprised.
yes, I was. I was like, it's a couple of months, no one's reading, no one's, and it's like, well, you haven't told anybody about your book. You told your
Oh,
friends and family, and
yeah.
your 5 friends on Facebook, and thought that was
Wow.
enough to become a best-selling
My
author.
goodness.
So I had to go back to the drawing board and realize that if I truly wanted to pursue this as a serious profession
Yeah.
and a serious career path, I had to put in work. I
Yeah.
couldn't just publish and go. Um, I had to market my books. So
Mm.
a year later, when I had finished writing Descendants of Time and Death, I went and republished Child of Tempest as
Mm.
well
Interesting.
because I republished with a new cover. I republished under Wynn's Books LLC, or excuse me, Wynn's Books, that's when it was.
Mm.
And I started to really push and market myself out
Yeah.
there. I started Wynn's Books.blog. I started blogging. I started connecting with other authors, asking questions,
Yeah.
really understanding what it takes to market and get your book out there. It's not just, again, you write, you edit, you publish. You actually have to put in
Yeah.
more work to that. You have to plan things.
Absolutely.
So you have to market, you have to promote, public relations, do a
Yeah.
full book tour,
PR.
and again, let people know that, hey, I wrote a book,
Yeah.
and not
Absolutely.
just your 4 family members and a few friends on Facebook.
Hmm.
So once I understood that, I think that was my biggest hurdle because I didn't take time to really research. I researched every other form of publishing, but when it came to
Hmm.
self-publishing, I read, oh, you can do it yourself and then you make money. I was like, okay. And I didn't take time to really digest what that meant and
Hmm.
how I was going to do that effectively.
Wow.
So once I did go back to the drawing board, sit down, research, plan, strategize, I had a better product at the end and I had a better book too.
Wow. That's quite amazing to know, really. I love your take on this. And this is one of the things that most authors struggle with. The writing aspect is fine, but the main
Yes.
work lies in the marketing and the sources of any business, not even writing alone. The source of every business, every profession lies in its marketing capacity. Marketing is
Yep.
where, the sales come from, it's where the audience come from, it's where you're gonna get people interested in your books and all of that. So yeah, I can relate to that so much. So thank you for sharing. Quite amazing to
Of
know.
course.
And
Yes.
now, Winnie, is there anything that you would love to share with the viewers about your books that we did not mention in this interview and you'd love the viewers to know?
I would love the viewers to know that the books are finally getting hardback cover versions
Oh,
that will be
interesting.
released in April. We just released the first cover design for Child of Tempest. It's up now on our website and
Oh,
all my social media platforms. It looks really
interesting.
nice, and I'm excited to release the rest of them in
Mm,
March. Um, and they are on pre-order right now. So you can pre-order them on my website if you would like a copy.
Mm,
And also that, again, this series, a lot of its themes tie back into family dynamics. So
mm,
you get to see what type of family dynamics I write about with the story. And you do follow two main families, and you get to see how they play off each other, how they're interconnected,
mm,
and again, just different points of views from different family members within the same family. Seeing how, even though some children, they grow up in the same family with the same parents, but still have different childhoods and perspectives on
yeah,
how they grew up and how those parents treated
absolutely.
them.
Absolutely.
So you get to see those different points of views, and you get
Wow.
to see how it impacts them into young adulthood, into adulthood, and just follow their stories. So, yeah.
Yeah. I love the fact that you mentioned this, the childhood, the growing up, the different perspective on kids, etc. It's an amazing team, really. And yeah, your book sounds very interesting and quite captivating to me. Yeah, now, Winnie, as a published author, what sort of advice do you have for other writers who are still struggling with publishing a book like yours? What would you advise people in this category?
I would say number one, always ask for help. Always, always, always. Do not do this alone. There are
Yeah,
so many experts out there who are willing to give you free seminars, workshops,
absolutely.
just emailing them or sending them a message on Facebook or
Yeah.
Instagram or even TikTok if you need to.
Mm,
It's closed mouth doesn't get fed. So always knowing that there are not millions but thousands of authors and book professionals from the beginning, from editing and developmental editing to the end with PR and marketing, that
yeah.
you just, hey, I'm a new author, I don't know what I'm doing, can you help?
Mm,
And you
yeah.
have places like me, Wins Books, who usually I get directed by other authors for new authors. They're like, hey, Winnie, I have a new author. They don't know what they're doing. Here you go. And I'm like, okay. So always knowing that
Wow.
there are people who are just happy to give you advice, happy to help, happy to lead
Mm,
you in the right direction.
yeah.
Because I have this theory that no one can have too many books. No one can have too many stories to read or too many stories to write.
Yeah.
And, I think every book has its purpose and place, and it has its
Mm,
audience. And it's just
yeah.
up to you to find out how you can get that audience.
Absolutely.
And that, again, takes time, research, and asking questions. Ask as many
Yeah.
questions as you can. And I think that will help you better understand the whole process
Mm,
from start to finish, and also help you better create a better book and
wow.
become a better writer over time.
Wow, wow, that's a ton of advice you've given. That's a truckload of advice. I love the sound of it, really. Yeah, you gave quite an amazing advice, very informative and quite educative too. And I'm hopeful that viewers, including myself, would love to utilize it. Now, Winnie, would you love to read a section of your book to the audience? It might be your favorite line, your favorite paragraph, or your favorite page, yeah, from any of your works you just want to read so we can have a snippet into your work. Yeah,
Yeah, I can actually just read the first page of Child of Tempest.
great.
And each chapter has a chapter title. So chapter one is called His Illusionary Realm.
Okay.
So it goes as follows. My eyes shot open. I was lying alone on the ground. My forearm was glowing. The emblem of Tempest was its culprit. I stood up and saw a narrow path in front of me, and the light appeared at the end. I started to walk. As I continued down the mysterious path, a light appeared at the end of the trail. Finally, I got to the end of the trail, and there were two ancient doors in front of me. I pushed them open, eager to know what was on the other side. The door swung open, and the light reappeared. I reached out, barely grazing my fingers onto it, when I was transported to another place. I looked down at my arm, and there's a large flash of light shining over my eyes. A giant temple was now in front of me, drenched in golden ivory, with its pillars looming, standing firm and tall. I walked up the stairs of the glorious temple to two more large doors in front. I reached out and pulled the doors open again, and in a blink of the eye, I was back on that trail. I peered around to see where the door and temple had gone. When I twisted around, I found it, but now there was a staircase leading up to it, and the emblem was on the pedestal at the very top. The sun and the moon glowed like beacons in darkness, and the center circle like the waves of golden light. As I got closer to the stairway, my arm blazed brighter. I heard others making indiscriminable sounds, but as I got closer, I noticed it was repetitive. He will rise. He will rise. He will rise. He will rise. The path behind me shook and crumbled. I needed to get closer. The voices grew louder, and the light from my arm became blinding. The chant began to speed up as I got closer to the emblem. He will rise. He will rise. He will rise. He will rise. My anxiety grew with each moment, and I started to run faster, praying that the path behind me did not pull me into the unknown black abyss. I could feel the sweat on my body starting to form. I heard my heartbeat pounding in my chest. I will never reach the staircase. He will rise. He will rise. He will rise. The voices grew louder and louder. My legs hurt. My palms were sweaty. My head was spinning. He will rise. He will rise. He will rise. I was almost there. I can feel it. If only I could get closer.
Wow. That's quite amazing, really. Yeah, as you were reading, I was making some notes. I haven't read the book anyway, but I was making some I was making some notes based on the few things you've read. And number one, I realized it was written in the first person point of view, which is quite amazing to me. And again,
Yes.
it sounds like a fantasy adventure. I'm not quite sure if I'm correct about that. And
Yes, you are.
number
You're on
three,
point.
yeah, great. And number three, your word usage are quite illustrative and imaginative. Amazing. As you're going, I was painting an image in my head. Wow, amazing stuff I've said, even when I haven't read the full book, right? Anyway, yeah, hopefully I'd love to get to that afterward. Yeah. So that's really amazing, really. I love the sound of it. I love the sound of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow,
Yes.
Tempus sounds amazing, really. Thank you so much for reading that.
Of course. I try. Look, I may be a good writer, but my reading skills are
No,
sometimes
it's amazing too. Your reading skills are quite amazing. And I love the intonation, and it sounds as if I was listening to an audiobook even. So that's beautiful.
I've had people ask me if I would do my audiobook. I said, oh no, no, no.
To be amazing, actually. I love it. I love it when author recites their own work. I love it when I hear audiobooks, said or narrated by the author themselves. I don't know why, but I think I prefer it that way. Well, then it's amazing, really. I love your short reading. It's quite lovely that you do this.
Thank you.
And now, in case we have some viewers who are currently watching this interview and would love to get a copy of your book, on what platform are they available on for purchase?
So my books are available globally through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and all other distributing platforms. And you can find those on my website at wins with one N, WISN books with an S at the end, .blog. And you can find all my books where they're carried, where you can buy them, where you can buy the hardback, paperback, and ebook versions of every book I have available.
Amazing, very amazing. And I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Winnifred Tataw's books directly on Amazon, on the website, and also on other platforms. So thank you so much, Winnie, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's awesome having this conversation with you.
Yes. Thank you. I was happy to have it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure as well. I enjoyed it. So thank you so much.